All right, the car we're working on today is a 2006 Chrysler Sebring that I bought well over a year ago. Unfortunately, I was still doing construction at the time. I was doing both, obviously, but I was still doing construction at the time, and I got super busy with construction after I had already torn this thing down. Let me show you. So I had already torn this thing down. And I had taken the heads off of it, and that's where I stopped because I got so busy with construction I didn't have time to get back to this. So there it sat, and it sat like this for well over a year. So I've been scared to get back on it, but I've got the time. I'm not working on these other cars anymore. Well, I am some of them, but it's time to finally get it done. I've been scared to get back on it because I'm the type that I like to do things from memory. So when I tear a car apart, I do it in a way that I will remember how it goes back together. However, like I said, this has been over a year ago, so there's no way in crap I'm going to remember anything about it. So it's going to be very interesting to see what it takes me to get this car back together. But we're going to get started on it and see what we can get done. Okay, so I found when I originally started tearing this thing down, it was February 15th, 2019. Which means it's not been a year, it's not been a year and a half, but it's been over 2 years now. 2 years and a month, almost exactly. So I'm ashamed really to even admit that, but that was the circumstances. I didn't have any other choice. So this thing's been tore apart, sitting here forever. Anyway, so we're getting this thing back together. I got the catalytic converter in the back replaced there, as you can see. When I took the thing apart, the bolts just snapped right off the catalytic converter, and they are welded onto it. So it was cheaper for me to just replace it. So I'm going to show you the head that I'm about to put the rear head on here. I'm going to show you that. All right, so here's the rear head that I'm about to put on, and I wanted to show you this for a reason. This thing was running really bad when I parked it. Now, I mean, I knew it had some kind of head problem other than just a head gasket, and it did. Anytime you do a head gasket, guys, if you've never done this before, this is one of the very few jobs I don't recommend you DIY unless you have some sort of mentor that can help you out of a tight spot, because you're literally tearing half the engine apart. And if you don't know what you're doing and you don't put it back together right, you take it apart wrong. I mean, there's a number of ways you can really mess up with doing head gaskets. And the problem is, if you don't do everything just right, you're going to put it back together, and either A, it won't run, B, it won't run right. Unless, of course, you did it right. And it's very easy to do it wrong. So I'm just saying all this. I don't want to discourage you guys, but, if you've never done this before, find a mentor. Find somebody that will at least talk to you about it. I'm available on the YouTube chat, in the comments, but I don't check it every day. Sometimes it might be a couple days before I check it. And, it's really something that you need to have somebody that can come over and look at it, or at least, send pictures back and forth. I will help any way I can, if y'all decide to dive into this, but you definitely need to have somebody that's done it before. just to make sure that you do everything right, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a mess, man. You're going to put so much time and effort into it, and then it's not going to run right, and that's going to suck. So anyway, I always take my heads, especially when I have any concern about them whatsoever, I always take them to the machine shop. We've got a really good machine shop here in town. Guy's been in business forever. He does a great job. I always have, I take it and they do what they call hot tank, which cleans the head up. So you can tell, this part of the engine looks, or I'm sorry, the head looks brand new. So they hot tank the head. You have to know, what you want when you go up there. If you don't know what you want, you're either, going to get talked into whatever they want to sell you, or hopefully you have a good shop and they'll tell you exactly what you need. But anyway, what I do is I have them hot tank it, which is clean it. Then I have them pressure check it to make sure that there's no cracks or bad valves or, anything of that sort. So I have them hot tank it, pressure test it, and then I have them machine it down. Now, what they'll do is they'll find out, what's the, if it needs to be machined, which they almost always do. So they'll find the lowest point, and let's say it's like 4,000th. And if you have two heads, bring both of them, because if you take 4,000ths off of one, you're going to want to take 4,000ths off the other one, generally. So anyway, I wanted to show y'all, I had this head tested, and as you can see, those are old valves. I had to put 4 new valves in this head. Now this is a V6, so there's 2 heads, but I only had to put, there was nothing wrong with the other one, but I had to put 4 valves in this head. Now you can see that's dirty right there. I'm obviously going to clean that before I get started here, putting the head back on. Get this cleaned up and get this head put on. But I just wanted to show you all the new valves, and that, you need to take it to a machine shop and let them go through it and make sure everything's right before you just take a head gasket, slap it back on there and put it back together, and then maybe have the same problem, or maybe not quite as bad, but the car still ain't right. All right, guys, I got the multi-layer steel head gasket laid down on there. Of course, cleaned both surfaces up about 4 more times. Right back here, you can see I bolted the manifold back onto the head before I put it in. That's the way I had to take it out, because it's so hard to get to the bolts. I talked about that earlier. Anyway, so got the head gasket on there, got the head set down on there with the exhaust manifold, and I've got the bolts put in it. Have not torqued it down yet, and as you can tell, I still got to put all the lifters back in there, all the rockers. Still got to put the dual overhead camshafts back in there, and the sprockets. Just got the head set in there. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and put the other head on here while I'm at it. Clean up both these surfaces here, and then go ahead and put the other head on. And then I can start putting the heads together, putting all the rockers in there, the hydraulic lifters, camshafts, sprockets, all that good stuff. All right, all I've done now is just cleaned up both of these surfaces, put the head gasket down, and set the head down. And I'm going to show you all. See, there's the head gasket. So all I've done is just set this over the alignment pins, which lines everything up, and then I'm going to set the head on there, back on there. I just wanted to show you all this because none of the other YouTube videos you're going to watch are for a head gasket on a Chrysler Sebring. And the reason why that's important is, yes, there's 2.7s in multiple different cars, and you'll find plenty of videos for like a Dodge Charger. But this engine, the engine itself is not really different, but the intake is different, and the exhaust manifolds are different. So this is different than what you're going to find there. Looks like my alignment pin's lined up there. It is lined up there. I'm in that one. Just somehow slightly off of this one. I think that did it. Yeah, I believe that pushed me down on it. Yep. Okay. So that's how you want to set the head down. You don't want to sit it down and slide it all around. You'll scratch up the surface, and that's the last thing you want to do after you've been protecting the surface to keep from getting scratches in it. You also don't want to scratch up your gasket. So now we're going to go ahead and put the bolts in, but before I do that, I want to see how hard it may or may not be to put this exhaust manifold in afterwards. The back one, you definitely want to put that exhaust manifold on before you set the head in. This one, I think I can possibly manage, but I'm starting to think I'm wrong. But then again, I don't know how in the world you'd ever get this thing in here if you already had the manifold on. Alright, while that wasn't easy, you're definitely going to have to do it that way. You're going to have to put your head in first and then put your exhaust manifold in. You could possibly put your exhaust manifold on the catalytic converter and pull it away from the engine and set the head in there. You know, so put your exhaust manifold in first and then put the head in. But you definitely cannot put this in as a whole in the front. All right, let's get the bolts in there. Now I'm going to thread this all the way down because this one is on the alignment pin. And I want to thread that one all the way down so that it keeps the head from jumping off the block and sliding all around. All right, so we've set all the bolts down in here. We're just gonna get them all snugged up. Just snug, that's all. That's all we're gonna do right now. We still have to go through the whole sequence of torquing the head down. Now you can use an impact, but always start them by hand. Never start them with an impact. And when you use the impact, just go slow. That's all you, just go slow. That's all you want, right there. All right, what I'm doing now is torquing the heads down. Now from the specs I found, it says 1 to 8, 30 pounds the first time, 55 pounds the second time, and 55 pounds the third time, which basically just means they want you to make sure everything's 55 pounds. And then you do 1/4 turn, 90 degrees, just 1/4 of a turn, basically stretching the bolts, torque to yield. So you do your 30 and then 55, 55, and then 1/4 turn. So that's what I'm working on now. Now it just says 1 to 8, but I've never seen a torque sequence that didn't start in the middle and work its way out because it wants to get the air out from underneath it. So what I'm doing is I'm starting here in the middle, and I'm going to do this one. All right, that tells me that it's at 55. So anyway, I'm gonna do this one, and then I'm gonna come here, and then I'm gonna go here, here. I'm just gonna keep like an X pattern. So there's 8 of them, so I'm gonna keep crisscrossing. And I'm gonna go ahead and torque both these heads down. All right, for this final stage here, for the 90-degree quarter turn torque, I'm gonna take a red paint marker and I'm gonna put a small mark on the bolt so that I can see. I have a bolt head laying around here. So I'm gonna put a small mark on the bolt head so that I can see to turn it 1/4 turn. I don't want to go any further than that, but I want to make sure I go at least that far. So I'm trying to go exactly 1/4 turn. So for that, I'm going to mark it so that I know that I've done my torque sequence correctly. Because the last thing I want to do is improperly install a head gasket. All right, just want to give you all a little forewarning. On some of these bolts, you might hear some creaking and popping on your last torque. Believe it or not, that is normal. What's happening is you are literally stretching the bolts. They're designed to do that. That's why you want to replace the head bolts every time you do a head gasket, because now not all bolts are designed that way, but a lot of them are. So it's always recommended to replace your head bolts. They're like 20, 25 bucks, something like that, for the insurance. And to not have to come back into this, get the head bolts. The sound that you're going to hear is, it doesn't sound good. It's going to scare you. But just go easy and torque it the way you're supposed to. Now, make sure before you even put your bolt in there that those bolt holes are cleaned out 100%. You ain't got nothing in them. Because if you get down there and hit something and then you try and stretch a bolt and you got a loose bolt on the head, that ain't doing nobody no good. So make sure all your bolts are cleaned out, or your bolt holes are cleaned out 100%. And I like to put a very small amount of oil on each one of my head bolts just to make sure that they thread down in there good. Now, a lot of times when you buy them, they're going to come in a bag that's got a little bit of a assembly oil on them. And as long as they're not like soaking wet, that's good. You might even want to wipe a little bit of it off. Just make sure that you got some on each bolt before you put it in there. All right, so when you find yourself struggling, you get something bigger. And when that don't work, you get something even bigger. This is what we call a cheater bar. It's just a piece of fence pipe. But when you're doing something like these head bolts, you put this on here and it sticks way out there, and you grab the end of it and it gives you so much more leverage. It makes this easy to move. So, pro tip, grab yourself a cheater bar. And then we got to put all of our lifters and rockers back in. Well, actually, we got to put the lifters and rockers in first, and then put the camshafts in. And, you know, of course, the timing sprockets, timing chain, all that good stuff. We've already put, you see right there, we've already put a brand new water pump on there. So this thing will be ready to rock once we get it back together.